The unexpected invitation. Jackson, a seasoned warrior from Earth, had fought in many battles across the galaxy. He was known as a fierce fighter, respected by both allies and enemies. His reputation was built on his strength, quick thinking, and bravery. But today, something unexpected was about to happen, something that would change his life forever. It started with an unusual letter. At first, Jackson thought it was a mistake. He had received invitations before, mostly from military commanders or leaders of various planets, asking for his help or offering rewards. But this was different. This letter was from a royal family. It was an invitation to a wedding, a grand event on a distant alien planet. The invitation read, "You are cordially invited to the royal wedding of Princess Zephyra and Prince Talrex. Your presence is requested as a guest of honor. Join us in celebrating the union of two powerful worlds." Jackson frowned as he read it. Why would they invite a human warrior to their wedding? It didn't make sense. He was used to fighting wars and taking orders, but he had never been to a royal wedding before, and certainly not as a guest of honor. The letter was signed by King Orthon, the ruler of the alien kingdom. The king's name was known across the galaxy for his wisdom and strength, but this invitation felt strange. Jackson had heard rumors about the royal family, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Curiosity began to grow in Jackson's mind. He wasn't one to ignore an invitation, especially one that came from such a powerful king. He had no idea what to expect, but the adventure alone intrigued him. He had been through countless battles, but this was something completely different. After a few days of thinking it over, Jackson made up his mind. He would go. He prepared for the journey, gathering his gear and making sure he was ready for anything. The journey to the alien planet was long, and the closer he got, the more his excitement mixed with a sense of mystery. As his ship entered the alien planet's atmosphere, Jackson couldn't help but feel a rush of adrenaline. The planet was beautiful. Towering structures made of strange, glowing materials surrounded lush green fields, and the sky was a deep shade of purple, with two suns setting in the distance. It was nothing like Earth, and yet it felt oddly peaceful. He landed near the royal palace, a massive building with high towers and intricate designs. Alien creatures of all shapes and sizes roamed the grounds, and many of them gave Jackson a curious look as he stepped out of his ship. A royal servant, tall and dressed in a flowing golden robe, greeted him at the entrance. "Welcome, honored guest," the servant said with a bow. "The royal family is expecting you." Jackson was led inside, where the grandeur of the palace took his breath away. There were walls made of shimmering crystal, and the air was filled with soft music and the scent of exotic flowers. The palace was a place of unimaginable beauty, and it felt like he had stepped into another world. As he walked through the halls, Jackson couldn't help but notice the tension in the air. The royal family was preparing for the wedding, but there was something off about the whole situation. The guests were nervously whispering amongst themselves, and even the servants seemed to move with caution. Jackson was led to a large hall where the wedding ceremony would take place. The room was magnificent, with a giant crystal chandelier hanging above, casting a soft glow on the marble floors. The wedding guests were already gathered, and Jackson could see them exchanging glances, eyeing him curiously. He was given a seat near the front, where he could get a good view of the ceremony. As he sat, Jackson noticed a young woman standing at the altar. It was Princess Zephyra, the bride. She was stunning, with long silver hair that shimmered in the light and deep blue eyes that seemed to see right through him. She was the picture of grace, yet there was a hint of sadness in her expression. Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong.
The groom, Prince Talrex, stood beside her. He was tall and handsome, dressed in rich, royal attire, but Jackson noticed that Talrex was looking around nervously, his eyes darting from guest to guest. The tension in the room seemed to grow thicker as the ceremony began. Just as the priest started to speak, something unexpected happened. The doors to the hall burst open, and a group of royal guards stormed in, their weapons raised. The guests screamed and scattered, and Jackson quickly jumped to his feet, instinctively reaching for his own weapon. But before he could act, something even more shocking happened. Princess Zephyra, her eyes wide with panic, turned to Jackson. Without warning, she ran towards him, pushing through the chaos. In that moment, Jackson realized that this wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was the beginning of something much bigger, something that would pull him deeper into a world he didn't fully understand. As the princess reached him, she whispered urgently, "I need your help." Jackson's heart raced. He had no idea what was happening, but one thing was clear. This wedding was no ordinary event, and his life was about to change forever.
The royal wedding and the princess's secret. The chaos in the wedding hall was overwhelming. Jackson stood frozen for a moment, watching as guests scrambled in every direction, their faces a mix of fear and confusion. Princess Zephyra, however, didn't hesitate. With a swift and graceful movement, she took Jackson's arm, pulling him toward the side exit of the hall. "Hurry," she urged in a low voice, her blue eyes scanning the room nervously. "They can't know we're leaving." Jackson followed her, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to let the princess face whatever danger was ahead alone. As they slipped through the side corridor, Jackson could hear the sound of shouting and the clash of weapons. The royal guards, those who hadn't been incapacitated by the sudden attack, were likely already trying to restore order. But Zephyra was different from the other guests. She wasn't just running to escape. There was something urgent in her every step, something that told Jackson she knew more than she was letting on. They moved through the palace in silence, ducking into shadows whenever they heard footsteps approaching. It wasn't long before they reached a hidden chamber deep within the palace. The door closed softly behind them, sealing them off from the rest of the chaos. Jackson took a deep breath and turned to face Zephyra. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Zephyra glanced around, ensuring no one else was nearby before speaking. "I'll explain everything, but first, you have to understand something. This wedding was never meant to be a celebration. It was a trap." Jackson's brow furrowed. "A trap?" he repeated. She nodded, her gaze intense. "Prince Talrex is not who he seems. He was never meant to marry me. The real groom was supposed to be someone else, someone much more dangerous. Talrex is just a pawn in a larger game. The real threat is hidden in plain sight, the royal family itself." Jackson took a step back, trying to process what she had just revealed. It didn't make sense. He had been a soldier all his life, and in his experience, betrayal like this was common in the galaxy, but never had he seen a royal family act so openly. Zephyr, though, seemed calm, almost too calm, as if she had known this moment would come. "But why? Why would they do this?" Jackson asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Zephyr walked to a nearby table and picked up a small glowing crystal. "Because my father, King Orthon, has been hiding a secret for years. This marriage was meant to unite our kingdom with another powerful empire, the Virex Dominion. The prince we were supposed to marry wasn't Talrex. He was an emissary from the Virex Dominion, an alliance that would strengthen my father's rule and bring us peace. But my father made a deal with the wrong people." Jackson didn't need to ask which people Zephyra was referring to. It was clear that the Virex Dominion had their own agenda. A kingdom like theirs, full of ancient power and wealth, was a perfect target for conquest. But what Zephyra was saying made little sense. How had her father allowed such a dangerous plot to unfold in the heart of his own kingdom? Before he could ask more, Zephyra turned to him, her voice low. "The truth is, Jackson," she said, her tone serious, "I never wanted this marriage. I never wanted to be a pawn in a game of politics. I've spent my life watching my father and the council make decisions that affect us all, and I'm tired of it.
I need your help to stop what's coming, and you may be the only one who can help me now." Jackson could see the weight of her words sinking in. There was no doubt about it. Princess Zephyra was more than just a royal figure. She had a purpose, a fire that burned beneath her calm exterior. But Jackson still had one question lingering in his mind. Why me? Why did you come to me of all people? She looked at him with a mixture of urgency and sadness. "Because I saw your strength, Jackson. You fought with honor during the attack. You didn't hesitate. And you're not from here, so you won't be blinded by our politics. I need someone I can trust." Jackson took a deep breath. He hadn't signed up for this kind of mission, but somehow he knew that his arrival on this planet wasn't just a coincidence. It felt like fate. The warrior in him told him that he couldn't walk away now, not after everything that had happened. "All right, I'll help you," Jackson said, his voice steady. "But we need to figure out who's really pulling the strings, and we need to do it fast. The longer we wait, the more dangerous this situation becomes." Zephyra nodded. "I know, and I have a plan, but we'll need to move quickly. The council will soon know that I've run away, and they won't rest until they find us. We have to act before they realize the truth." Jackson knew that time was not on their side. Every second they spent hiding only brought them closer to the moment when their enemies would discover their betrayal. There was no turning back now. With one final look at the princess, Jackson knew that the path ahead would be dangerous, but he was ready to fight for what was right, ready to uncover the hidden truths, and ready to face whatever came next.
The King's Fury and Jackson's Dilemma. Jackson and Zephyra stood in the dimly lit chamber, the weight of their decisions hanging heavily between them. The walls of the royal palace, once a symbol of strength and pride, now felt like a prison. Jackson felt the urgency of the situation building, but there was a storm brewing outside the chamber, a storm that had nothing to do with the weather. Zephyra's expression had shifted from calm determination to something darker, something more haunted. "We can't hide here forever," she said, her voice low. "Sooner or later, my father will find out that I've gone. He'll be furious, and that's just the beginning." Jackson had known the risks from the moment he had stepped into the palace, but the thought of the king's wrath made him uneasy. King Orathon was a ruler known for his wisdom, yes, but also for his unrelenting nature when it came to protecting his kingdom's secrets. And now, Zephyra had defied him. "The king won't take this lightly," Jackson said, turning toward her. "But if what you say is true, if the kingdom is in danger, we don't have a choice. We have to act fast." Zephyra's face softened, but her eyes were filled with a deep sadness. "I never wanted this, Jackson. My father has always kept me in the dark about the real workings of the kingdom. He's made alliances with people, dangerous people, and I can't stand by and let him destroy everything we've worked for." The door to the chamber suddenly creaked open, and a guard entered, his expression tense. "Princess, the king demands your presence immediately," the guard said, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes flickered toward Jackson, but quickly returned to the princess. Zephyra's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The king had found out. "Tell my father I'm not coming," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "I have urgent matters to attend to." The guard hesitated, but then he bowed. "Very well, princess, but he is angry. You will not be able to avoid him for long." As the guard left, Zephyra turned to Jackson, her face set in determination. "He knows, Jackson. He knows I'm gone, and he won't stop until I'm back under his control." Jackson's mind raced. He could feel the tension building, the sense of impending danger creeping up from every corner. They were running out of time. "I'll protect you, Zephyra," Jackson said, his voice filled with quiet resolve. "But we need to leave this place before it's too late." Just as he spoke, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway. The door to the chamber burst open, and King Orathon himself strode in, his royal cloak sweeping behind him like a shadow. His eyes were hard, his jaw clenched in fury. "Zephyra," the king's voice boomed through the room. "What have you done?" Zephyra stood her ground, her chin held high despite the fear that pulsed beneath her skin. "Father, I'm not going back. I can't be part of this any longer. The kingdom is at risk, and you're hiding the truth from everyone, including me." Jackson instinctively stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. He wasn't sure what was about to happen, but he knew that the king would not let this betrayal go unanswered. King Orathon's gaze flickered to Jackson and then back to his daughter. You trust this human? He spat. A warrior who knows nothing of the ways of our world? You are making a grave mistake, Sapphira. I will not allow you to ruin everything I've worked for. Sapphira's voice shook, but her resolve remained firm. You've already ruined it, Father. The alliance you made with the Virex Dominion will destroy us all. You've made deals with tyrants who will never keep their promises. This kingdom, our people, they deserve better, and I will not stand by and watch you sell us out. The king took a step toward her, his face inches from hers, and for a moment, I thought the tension would snap. You think you know better? You think you can defy me? You, my only daughter, my heir, dare to betray your own blood? Jackson stepped forward, positioning himself between Sapphira and the king. Enough, he said, his voice cold but unwavering. We don't have time for this. The kingdom is already falling apart and you two are wasting precious moments arguing. The king's eyes narrowed. You dared to speak to me like that, human? You are nothing more than a weapon to be used. Jackson didn't flinch, and yet I'm the only one standing between you and the destruction of everything you've worked for. So either you stand with your daughter, or you let your kingdom burn. The king's expression faltered, but only for a brief moment. He turned away from them, pacing across the room, deep in thought. Sapphira watched him, her eyes full of uncertainty, but also a flicker of hope. Could her father be convinced? After a long silence, King Orthon finally spoke, his voice quieter, but still filled with authority. You think you can just run away? That this will be over if you leave? You are the last hope of this kingdom, and without you, we are doomed. Jackson could see the conflict in the king's eyes, but he also saw something else, fear. Fear of losing control, fear of what the Virex Dominion might do, fear of a kingdom on the brink of collapse. Sapphira's voice broke through the tension. I don't want to rule through fear, Father. I want to rule with honor. I want to save our people from the lies you've built this kingdom on. The king's eyes softened, just for a moment, before he turned away again. Then you'll have to make a choice, Sapphira. You can't have both. Jackson could feel the weight of the moment. They were standing at the crossroads of destiny, and the choices made here would shape the future of the entire kingdom. He looked at Sapphira, knowing that whatever decision she made would be the one that determined the course of their lives. I will make my own path, Sapphira said firmly, turning away from her father, and I'll take you with me, Jackson. Together, we'll stop the Virex Dominion, and I will stop my father. Jackson nodded, his resolve hardening. This battle was far from over, but one thing was certain. Sapphira was no longer just a princess. She was a leader in the making, and he would stand beside her, no matter what came next.
The marriage and the hidden danger. The royal palace felt different now. The air was thick with uncertainty, and every footstep echoed with a sense of impending doom. Sapphira and Jackson had just escaped the king's fury, but they knew their troubles were far from over. The secret they had uncovered about the Virex Dominion and the king's betrayal was only the beginning. They had to act fast, before it was too late. Sapphira led Jackson through hidden passageways in the palace, trying to stay out of sight from the royal guards and servants who might still be loyal to her father. They made their way to a secluded courtyard where the full moon illuminated the sky, casting long shadows across the stone walls. This is where it will happen, Sapphira said, her voice soft but determined. I've arranged a meeting with the rebels who've been fighting against the Virex Dominion. We need their help if we're going to stop my father's plan. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Rebels? I thought you said the kingdom was already divided. Are you sure they'll help us? Sapphira nodded, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The Virex Dominion is using my father's alliance to take control of the entire galaxy. There are those who've seen the truth and are willing to fight back, but they need someone to lead them, someone they can trust. Jackson's heart raced. They were about to meet people who would not only challenge the king's rule, but also the very fabric of the galaxy's political landscape. If they failed, it could mean the end of everything Sapphira had ever known. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was a woman, tall and cloaked in dark robes, her face
hidden by a hood. Jackson instinctively reached for his weapon, but Zephyra held up a hand to stop him. This is Lyra, the leader of the rebel faction. She's the one I've been in contact with. Lyra pulled back her hood, revealing a striking face with sharp features and piercing green eyes. She didn't look like someone who led a rebellion. She looked like a warrior, the kind of person who had seen far too much war and destruction to still believe in the ideals of peace. But there was something in her gaze, something that told Jackson that she wasn't just fighting for her own survival. She was fighting for something bigger. "Zephyra," Lyra said, her voice low but fierce, "we've been waiting for you. The Virex Dominion's forces are moving closer. We don't have much time." Zephyra's jaw tightened. "I know. My father's plan is already in motion. He's preparing to announce the marriage alliance with the Virex Dominion in front of the entire galaxy. If that happens, it will be impossible to stop them." Lyra's eyes shifted to Jackson, studying him carefully. "And this is your ally?" she asked, her tone skeptical. Zephyra stood tall, her voice unwavering. "He's not just my ally, Lyra. He's the only one who can help us now." Jackson didn't say anything at first. There was no need. He could already feel the weight of the situation. The moment he had stepped into the palace, his destiny had become intertwined with Zephyra's. It wasn't just about loyalty anymore. It was about survival. Lyra studied Jackson for a moment longer, then nodded. "We need to strike before the wedding announcement is made. If we don't, the Virex Dominion will have full control of this planet. But there's something you don't know, Zephyra." Zephyra's eyes widened. "What is it?" Lyra stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The Virex Dominion has a secret weapon, something your father has been hiding from you." Jackson's senses went on high alert. A secret weapon? What could it possibly be? Lyra continued, "They've been experimenting with a new form of energy, something that could destroy entire fleets in seconds. It's hidden beneath the palace. Your father never told you about it, but the Virex Dominion is already making preparations to use it." Jackson's heart sank. If the Virex Dominion had access to such a powerful weapon, it wouldn't matter what they did. The balance of power would shift forever. There was only one thing they could do now: find the weapon and destroy it before it was too late. "We have to destroy it," Jackson said firmly. "We can't let the Virex Dominion get their hands on it." Zephyra nodded, her expression hardening. "We don't have a choice." Lyra turned to Zephyra. "We'll help you, but you need to know something. The weapon is guarded by more than just the king's loyalists. There are agents within your own palace who have sworn allegiance to the Virex Dominion. We'll have to move quickly and quietly, or we won't make it out alive." The stakes were higher than ever. Zephyra had no choice but to trust the rebels and Jackson. But there was one problem she hadn't considered: the wedding ceremony. It was supposed to take place the very next day, and the entire royal family, including the Virex Dominion's representatives, would be there. If they were going to make their move, they had to do it now. Zephyra looked at Jackson, her voice soft but full of resolve. "Tomorrow, we strike. We'll find the weapon and destroy it before the Virex Dominion can use it." Jackson nodded. He could feel the tension building. Every step they took now would determine the fate of the entire kingdom. But there was one thing he knew for sure: they couldn't stop now. Not after everything they had uncovered. As they prepared to leave the courtyard, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still yet to come. The Virex Dominion might have had a secret weapon, but they hadn't counted on a human warrior and an alien princess willing to fight back.
The final battle and new beginnings. The moonlight streamed through the palace's high windows as Jackson, Zephyra, and Lyra stood in the hidden chamber beneath the royal palace. The walls were made of smooth, metallic stone that hummed with faint energy, giving off an eerie glow. This was the place where the king's darkest secret lay hidden, the secret weapon that could change the fate of their world. But as they stood there, Jackson could feel the weight of the moment settling in. The air was thick with tension, as if the palace itself knew what was about to unfold. The clock was ticking. Only a few hours remained before the grand wedding ceremony. Once the wedding was complete, it would signal the final step in the Virex Dominion's plan to take control of the kingdom. Zephyra's eyes narrowed, her face set with fierce determination. We don't have much time. If we're going to stop them, we have to destroy the weapon before the ceremony begins. Jackson could see the resolve in her eyes, but he also saw the pain there. She wasn't just fighting for her kingdom or for her people. She was fighting for her father, the only family she had ever known, even if he had betrayed her. But now it was clear she had no choice. The kingdom would fall if they didn't act. Lyra led them through the dark corridors, her movements quick and precise. The weapon is located beneath the palace's core, hidden in a chamber sealed off by multiple security systems. There's no way to bypass them all without alerting the guards. We'll have to take a more direct approach. Jackson clenched his fists. He had faced death countless times, but this felt different. The stakes weren't just personal anymore. They were cosmic. The fate of an entire galaxy rested on the choices they made tonight. Lyra pressed a button on the wall, and the door slowly slid open with a hiss. The room beyond was dark, filled with the hum of strange machinery. At the center of the room was a massive, metallic structure, surrounded by rows of glowing energy conduits. The weapon. Zephyra took a step forward, her eyes scanning the room. "There it is," she whispered, "the Virex Dominion's ultimate weapon. It harnesses a form of energy we've never seen before, capable of destroying entire fleets in the blink of an eye." Jackson's pulse quickened as he approached the weapon. It was a massive, sleek device, its surface covered with intricate alien symbols that seemed to shift and move as though alive. The hum of energy filled the room, and Jackson could feel the power radiating from it. "We need to shut it down," Zephyra said urgently, "before they can activate it." But just as they began to approach, the doors slammed shut behind them. The lights flickered, casting the room in an eerie glow. Jackson turned, his hand instinctively going to his weapon, but it was too late. The room was filled with guards, dozens of them, all loyal to the king. Zephyra stepped forward, her voice filled with defiance. "You've already lost. This weapon will never be used to destroy my people." One of the guards, a tall, imposing figure, stepped forward. "You're wrong, Princess. The weapon is already set to activate. The Virex Dominion's fleet will arrive within hours. You can't stop it now." Jackson could feel the tension building in the room. They were outnumbered, trapped, and yet Zephyra refused to back down. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath them, and a low, rumbling sound filled the air. It was the Virex Dominion's fleet, arriving. The time of negotiation was over. Jackson and Zephyra had no choice but to fight. "We don't have a choice," Jackson said, his voice calm despite the rising danger. "We have to destroy it, or all is lost." Zephyra nodded, her hand reaching for a control panel on the side of the weapon. "I'll try to disable it from here," she said, her fingers moving swiftly across the alien controls. But before she could do anything, the guard in charge made his move. With a quick motion, he lunged at her, knocking her away from the control panel. In that instant, Jackson acted, his hand reaching for his weapon. The fight was swift and brutal.
Jackson fought like a seasoned warrior, his every move calculated and deadly. He took down one guard, then another, moving with the precision of someone who had spent years honing his skills. But the guards just kept coming, relentless in their attempt to protect the weapon. Zephyra, recovering from the guard's attack, grabbed a nearby energy blade. With a swift motion, she joined Jackson in the fight, her strikes graceful but lethal. Together, they made a powerful team, fighting side by side as the room echoed with the clash of weapons. But the fight wasn't over yet. In the chaos, the weapon's hum grew louder, its power surging as the countdown to activation began. Zephyra knew they only had moments before it was too late. With one final desperate push, Jackson took down the last of the guards. Zephyra rushed to the control panel, her fingers flying over the buttons as she tried to disable the weapon. "It's now or never," she muttered under her breath. With one final press of a button, the weapon's hum ceased. The room fell silent, and for a moment, it seemed as if the entire galaxy held its breath. Then, the lights flickered again. The weapon was disabled. Jackson and Zephyra stood there, breathing heavily, their bodies covered in sweat and blood. They had done it. The weapon was destroyed. The Virex Dominion's hold on the kingdom was broken. But as they stood in the quiet aftermath, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. They had won this battle, but there were still many more ahead. The galaxy was full of dangers, and the path to true peace would be a long one. Zephyra turned to Jackson, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You did it! We did it!" Jackson smiled, though it was weary. "We're not done yet, Zephyra, but we're one step closer." And so together they stood at the edge of a new beginning. The battle for the kingdom was over, but the fight for freedom, for honor, and for the future of the galaxy had only just begun.